And then we have a decrease in other expense changes of $2.7 million. That is primarily related to no election being held in the 14-15 year, and also no $1 million augmentation for our technology funding. So if those were the only things to change, in 14-15, we would have a deficit of $73,000 in the 14-15 year. So what this is trying to show is that we really need to see the January governor's budget before we can make any decisions on future ongoing increases to our budget, because without any additional revenues, we will no longer have a surplus and we'll be back into a deficit situation. That's really the reason behind showing this slide and projecting out over 2 years rather than just looking at the 1 year. So moving on to some of our future budget challenges, the full-time faculty obligation number is one of them. The FON, as we like to call it, that requirement has been frozen since the fall of 2008, and what it means when the FON is frozen is that we don't have to meet the number of full-time faculty, but we have to be able to meet the same percentage of part-time to full-time faculty as we had in the previous year. We have been meeting that percentage over the last several years since the FON has been frozen. We're anticipating that the FON will not be frozen for the fall of 2014. And if it is not frozen in the fall of 2014, that's where we're estimating that we're going to need to hire 30 new full-time faculty in order to meet our number of the full-time faculty obligation. We also have a challenge with our Proposition 30 revenues being temporary. As you recall, when this passed, they were temporary. The sales tax is going to terminate at the end of 2016, and the income tax is going to terminate at the end of 2018. So we don't know what that will look like when those additional revenues cease and how that will impact the state budget. EPA, which is the Education Protection Account, and redevelopment backfills are a challenge. Both of these right now are creating deficits, and we don't know how and if those are going to be backfilled, but until we get that straightened out, it is a future budget challenge because we don't control how much the state is budgeting for those, and we're kind of at the state's mercy on whether or not they backfill them. One of the major challenges is that our apportionment funding is getting more complicated. In 2008, about 2/3 of the apportionment revenue was within the state's general fund adopted within the Budget Act. Now it's only about 1/3 of the state's general fund. So that's why I think you see that our deficit factor was at 3.7% because we had 2 additional pots of money that are feeding into that deficit factor. So it's really doubled the differences in the pots of money that can generate a deficit. Here's kind of a chart just to show that. So back in 2008, you see the 3 different sources of funding. You see the general fund, so this is what we refer to as state apportionment. You have the property taxes there in red, and the enrollment fees are there in green. So typically the general fund was about 66% of our funding, property taxes at about 30%, and enrollment fees about 4%. Now this is what the pie chart looks like in 12-13 and moving forward. The general fund is only supplying about 35% of our revenue. Property taxes are over 35%. Our education protection account is 15%. The RDA, which is the redevelopment agency dissolution, is about 6.5%. And enrollment fees are about 6.8% of this. Now, with the education protection account, as long as that exists, there will be a deficit because the way the wording was for that legislation is that every community college will receive at a minimum $100 per FTES. Now, this creates a deficit factor to community colleges because your basic aid districts are receiving EPA funds. A basic aid district is a district who typically would not receive any state apportionment because they receive so much revenue from property taxes and enrollment fees. In this instance, even though they're receiving enough money in property taxes and enrollment fees, they're also getting EPA funds. So that is going to continue to create a deficit that the other, I think we're up to 5 basic aid districts now, almost 6. So the other 65 to 66 districts get to pay for those 5 to 6 basic aid districts to get some education protection account money. For the 12-13 year, that was about $9.3 million of the deficit, or about 0.2%. The other thing that we have an ongoing deficit on that we don't see going away is within the general fund, there is what they call stability revenue for when new colleges come online or when new centers come online. It creates a statewide deficit for those other districts because there isn't a special set of money to pay for those, and so that's about 0.3%. So at this point, the Chancellor's Office is estimating that ongoing we'll have at least a 0.5% deficit every year, regardless of how much the state is budgeting for these. So that's where the funding gets extremely more complicated and, I would say extremely more unpredictable as time goes on as well. So that concludes my presentation. I'll open up to any questions anyone may have.
Members of the board, Chair recognizes Trustee Clark.
This, I have to make the comment, takes me back to before Prop 13, when all local agencies set their own tax rates. Your local elected officials could set their tax rates, and we didn't have to go to Sacramento. And this is becoming much more difficult. It was much more simplistic at that time. But let me ask the question. It would appear that this year, the possibility that we have a budget that isn't phony, that may be solid. The trouble we've had is that mid-year they've decided these budgets are not realistic and then made adjustments and we've been cut. But it would appear this year, would you agree that we have a budget that appears, it's the first budget on time in I don't know how many years. It looks like Sacramento. I think Governor Brown has done a good job of being realistic and bringing this state back to some degree of financial reliability. But what do you feel that we can depend on this budget this year? I'm just asking your opinion.
I would say that the governor's budget for 13-14 is more realistic than it has been in the past. We have actually had on-time budgets for the past 3 years. Coincidentally, ever since the proposition was passed that if there is not an on-time budget, that the legislators would be docked pay. So we've had an on-time budget ever since then. But the issue and the uncertainty within it, even though it is the most realistic budget we've seen, is the property tax backfill related to the redevelopment agency activities. So they say that they will backfill the property taxes, but as we've seen, we have a deficit that the state applied to us as late as August 7th of 3.7%. That was a $185 million shortfall on the statewide level for community colleges, and it was primarily related to the redevelopment agency property taxes not coming in that the state had anticipated. So we still have not resolved with the Department of Finance whether or not they're going to backfill that money, and if they are going to backfill, when they will backfill it. We may not know until March of 2014 whether or not that 3.7% deficit factor that they applied in August is going to come down or not. So in one way, I agree with you that it is the best budget that we've seen, but I am still skeptical on whether or not the state is going to hold true to their promise to backfill community colleges for the dissolution of the redevelopment agencies.
Agree, thank you.
If I can add to that, Dr. Clark, there is another risk that Vice President Gable didn't mention that's been in the news quite a bit lately, and that is the our issues with corrections and prison population, and the challenges the governor is having in trying to address the federal government's concerns over California's prison population. That is going to require that a lot of state resources go to address that situation, and that's something we're watching closely to see if it will become a drag on revenues, future revenues that could have otherwise been diverted to higher education.
It's interesting that we spend $50,000 a year on prisoners and less on education, which is a shame.
Chair recognizes Trustee Aranga.
Yeah, I had a question in regards to slide 13. I know the board had expressed its regard towards the lowering the reserve from 5.5 to 5.0, and I see that we have that 0.5% going to student support services. Can you elaborate a little bit in terms of what those funds are going towards?
We haven't decided at this point in time what they will go to. It's something that we will be working closely with both instructional services and student support services to see where the need is. The fall semester is underway, and so we'll really be focusing on what we can do and what we need for those areas. So no decision's been made at this time.
I will add to that as you can see in the budget, there's 540 some odd unfunded FTEs. So one of the biggest areas of need, as was expressed by Dr. Clark, is to add classes, and we've been trying to do so. So that may wind up being where most of those funds are spent to ensure that we're able to put those classes on.
Thank you. Other members? Chair recognizes Trustee Bowen.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question that Trustee Aranga asked, and I just a little bit unsatisfied with the response that we can't right now get the definitive answer, because when Trustee Clark made that motion a couple months ago, I mean, I think the reason board members supported it is that we wanted to show that the board was taking the initiative on seeing to it that the very thing that what was said is going to be a priority would be addressed with that additional 0.5, and I would just be a little bit more comfortable if what we were the budget we were voting to adopt tonight made it more clear that we were definitely earmarking that money to that purpose of keeping more classes open.
Well, I mean, certainly the issue here is this is budget for the entire academic year. So as the academic year progresses, I think the board has made clear that adding classes to the extent possible is the priority. And certainly that is, as you can see in the budget, by having over 500 unfunded full-time equivalent students in the budget is part of that priority. Part of the hesitation is there is a number of revenues that we still are not clear how they will come in. So we're hopeful that perhaps we can do more than what we've said here. So I think the clarity comes in because the lack of clarity comes because it's not clear how much we will be able to do, how many classes we'll be able to add over the course of 2 semesters. That amount of money is not a whole lot of money in terms of adding class sections. Over 500 unfunded FTS, if you do the math, at $4,600 FTS, it comes nowhere near covering the cost of that unfunded FTES. So we also know that with those classes comes student support needs that are also not being funded. So that's where the uncertainty comes, but I think it was very clear when Dr. Clark mentioned it that providing courses is a priority, and beyond that, support services that go directly to ensuring students succeed in those courses would be the second priority.
And if I could add that I think, and Dr. Brock can attest to this, I think we added every class that could be added in the fall semester. I mean, we built up that schedule as much as we could. Once Dr. Brock got here in July, she hit the ground running, and she was working with the deans and the department heads saying, can you add classes, can you add classes? And where we could, we did. So our fall schedule, I think, is one of the largest fall schedules that we've ever offered. And Dr. Brock is already working on spring schedule and trying to add classes to the spring schedule. So we have every intent to add as many classes as we can both accommodate in classroom space as well as full-time and adjunct faculty.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Trustee Otto.
Yeah. I mean, as we went through this presentation, it was my understanding that in support of the board goals to support the student success agenda, that we increased our course offerings by 608 FTES, which meant 1,800 sections. Is that fair? I mean,
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, I feel like to date what we're putting our feet where our mouths were about what we said a couple months ago. The fact that we can't give a definitive answer at this very moment as to how that's going to happen is, I feel comfortable with that given the good faith that we've already established by adding these 1,800 sections in a relatively short period of time. Not only do we have more classes in the fall than we've had in a long, long time, if ever, but we had a substantially increased summer session after we've had horrendous summer sessions in the last couple of years. It's reconfigured in some ways, but we had a lot more sections. And so I think that's what the intention of the motion was, Dr. Clark's motion was a couple months ago. Is that?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Student Trustee Donato.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have two questions. So the first one is, since everything seems to be a lot better, and I understand that is uncertain the amount of money that we will be getting later with Proposition 30, and having in consideration also that the community really was really kind of upset for the discontinuance of the vocational programs, and one of our bold goals is actually supporting technical education. It will be cool. It will be nice if we actually start adding classes to the vocational programs, or maybe reinstating some of those vocational programs that we have discontinued in the past. So that's one of my questions. And the other one is that I have noticed here in elections in 2014 in April, we have allocated 1.3 for a potential special election. And my question is that my understanding is that a few of the members of the board are running also for city offices. Will this mean that we will also have to have special elections for that?
Jeff, can I?
Trustee Otto.
Yeah, let me answer both questions if I can. I'll answer the second one first. The college doesn't pay for city elections. It only pays for its own elections. So it wouldn't cost the college anything if trustees were running for other positions. However, it would cost the college more because they would have to have, if somebody was elected, they'd have to then have an election to replace a trustee that went on to someplace else. But we don't pay for the city's elections. That's question two. Question one was, you said, can we just start adding classes back? I think it's very important for people to remember in career technical education. It's for everybody to remember that we didn't so much as eliminate classes as we eliminated programs. A lot of those classes are still being taught, welding classes, carpentry classes. We reconfigured things in many, many ways. In fact, even now, we're teaching out classes in areas that we decided to discontinue. So it's not like we eliminated all the courses and the programs that we said we were no longer going to have. We just had, in some instances, some very, very expensive programs that were producing very, very few graduates or people with certificates, and even people that didn't really need those certificates to get the jobs that they wanted to get because they didn't require a AA degree or an AS degree or a certificate from Long Beach City College. Maybe they required an FAA certificate. And if that can be worked out and the program doesn't cost us $800,000 to $1 million a year for 6 graduates, it kind of made sense. We won't go through all the programs, but tough decisions, agonizing decisions. But in the end, I think the entire presentation tonight and the other presentations that have been made over time about this were, in essence, that we faced a catastrophic economic situation because of funding from the state. We had to save money from someplace. We cut things over the last few years, which were things that we thought we could get away with. We thought these were one-time things. And then our cyclical things became structural. And we had to say, you know, we can't kind of work our way through this. What we need to do is to make some structural changes in who we are by asking who we want to be, given what our goals are, what the president's agenda is, and then follow that agenda, follow those goals. And so that, for example, in career technical education, we're winding up doing and working on doing better future jobs with the Port of Long Beach, which is where the jobs are going to be, when they say we don't so much need a carpentry degree or a welding degree. We need people with skill sets that include those things. And that's smart stuff, just like other future jobs in national security things, in alternate fuel technologies, or where the jobs are really going to be. Those are the people that we're going to be training. And we're working on making those jobs and classes available to students to have those jobs. And it hasn't been fun, and it hasn't been pretty, but the consensus of the board was that it was necessary to retool and to get us to where we are now. Now, the message that I find most disheartening, and I think we all know it, is that the truth of the matter is that this budget has more risk than the budget of a couple of years ago, and more than a couple of years before that. And the reason for that is because the assumptions have changed. Just like we used to get 2/3 of our funding from the general fund in the States, we could say we can take that to the bank, although they started giving it to us a year later regularly. They're not even doing that anymore. They're just saying, you know, we're going to fund you, but stay tuned as to whether we give you those monies. That creates risk for us because we're trying to hold up the entire system. We get left off early, and to plan for that, we get budgets like the budgets that we're getting now. And at the same time, to bring this full circle, I think what we're showing is that what the board wants, which is more classes for more students so that they can get through, succeed, get jobs, help our local economy, support their families, is exactly what we're doing. And that's what our goals are and what we're trying to accomplish.
Are there any other questions?
If I can just add one point to Trustee Otto's comments, just to address Student Trustee Donato's specific question. We are adding more courses, and we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that the career technical education area, the vocational area, continues to grow. And we began that process this fall, and you'll see over subsequent semesters that will continue to grow. We're going to come back with a report to the board at a later board meeting to talk about what those specific changes are actually going to look like.
Other questions for Embry at this time? Vice President Gable, thank you very much for the report. Do you have other questions for Embry? We don't need statements at this point. Do you have just specific questions you'd like answered regarding the budget? I don't want to get back and forth. Hearing none. No, wait till you. All right. We do have two motions we have to deal with on this item. And so I'm going to make the, ask for the, I'll split them into two areas. Vice President Gable, thank you very much on the item. And I do believe that Trustee Clark did say it's not as simple as we dealt with budgets in the past, and there still is great uncertainty, and I believe this college, this board has done an exceptional job in comparison to other districts on dealing with these issues, which have been exceptionally difficult on higher education, so well done on the report. The motion, I will read it, on 12.7 is the 2013-14 adopted budget and educational protection account expenditure plan. I will now entertain a motion to approve that item. Motion by Trustee Clark.
Second.
Second by Trustee Aranga. Are there no other comments at this time? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. The second item, 12.8, is the 2012-2013 CCFC-311 Annual Financial and Budget Report, including the 2013 and 14 appropriation limit and educational protection account. Entertain a motion to approve that.
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Otto, second by Trustee Clark. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vice President Gable. Next item we're moving to is Pacific Coast Campus. I have no item, no report. Thank you. Next item is the College Advancement and Economic Development. No item, no report at this time. Thank you. We're now into communications. Academic Senate President. Thank you. Next item, the Superintendent President report, please.
Yes, thank you, Board President Kellogg. I have a few items to report on. First of all, I just want to thank all the faculty and staff who've made these first couple of weeks of the new academic year successful. We hit a few road bumps along the way in terms of the shuttle, some confusion on parking, but I appreciate everyone coming together and working through these issues and trying to address them. And I want to particularly thank our student leadership, including the student trustee, who's been communicating with us on several of these issues, and we've been trying to work through to address the needs of the students, and in particular the needs of Pacific Coast Campus students trying to get back and forth to the liberal arts campus. So I appreciate both her efforts and our ASP president's efforts at trying to address those needs, and we'll continue to work with the student leadership to address them going forward. Also want to thank everyone who was involved in today's ribbon cutting ceremony over at the Pacific Coast campus. We cut the ribbon on Building CC, the fitness center. Beautiful building. If you've not had a chance to stop by there, great new equipment which will provide for a number of more kinesiology and fitness classes for our Pacific Coast campus students. So I want to thank everyone involved in making that happen, and for everyone who attended, thank you for coming, and in particular to the kinesiology department and our Associate Vice President, Dr. Singal, for all the work that they've been doing over at the Pacific Coast campus. I also want to introduce a new face to our board meetings. He just started yesterday. Ricardo Garcia, he's now in charge of communications, media, public relations. So say hello, Ricardo. Welcome. Welcome to the team. So he's the guy that you see in the back asking me, who's that guy in the back? He's one of us. I want to thank Trustee Uranga, Latino Faculty Association, and others who helped bring together faculty and students and staff to preview the new PBS series, Latino Americans. It begins this week, and we had an opportunity to get a preview. I'll let Trustee Uranga comment on how that went, but I want to thank everyone who helped put that together. I unfortunately couldn't get back from Sacramento in time, but I hear it went well, and I'll let Trustee Uranga comment about that.
It was excellent, I thought. The students there, I think, learned quite a bit about some Latino history. It was a preview, actually, of the six-part series, and each segment gave a summary of what it was going to be about. And basically, it starts with the 16th century and takes us up to the present time. A lot of historical events. I personally had some personally affected by some of the episodes that were there because I was there. I lived part of it.
In the 1600s?
In some of the other episodes, particularly those dealing with the 1968 walkouts and the 1970 East Los Angeles riots, because I was around during that period of time. But a lot of history, very educational. I would encourage everyone to take a look at the PBS series. Starts September 17th, if I'm not mistaken, on PBS, and it goes on, I guess, for 6 consecutive evenings or weeks to basically cover the 500 years of Latino history. And if I do have to say one thing, I didn't say it that night, but I'll say it now, it's one of those issues where, we didn't cross the border crossed us. And so we need to live with that history. And it's more than anything else, I think the most compelling part of the documentary is the fact that Latinos are here to stay. They are making a significant impact on the culture and on the economy of this country. And it's basically a message that we really do need to have some comprehensive immigration reform that is fair and that recognizes the Latinos for the contributions that they make to this economy and to this culture. So I encourage everyone to please see it, and you can draw your own conclusions as to how effective it is. Thank you.
Thank you,
And thank you
Trustee
for
Ranga.
putting that together. It was excellent.
I just have a few more comments. One in particular that's a particular bill that's received a lot of attention lately, and I want to just take a moment to talk specifically about it and what the bill means and what its impact may or may not be. Yesterday, the California Senate passed Assembly Bill 955 on a bipartisan vote, sent it back to the Assembly today to concur with the amendments that were added to the bill, and the Assembly is now sent it on to the governor, who we expect will be considering it to sign into law within the next few weeks. In the bill, there are 6 colleges listed as potential pilots. Long Beach City College is one of those pilot colleges. We are, in fact, the sponsor of the bill. There's been a lot of contentious debate over this bill, some accurate, some not so accurate, but I do want to just take a moment to comment on exactly what this would and what it would not mean for Long Beach City College. I'll begin with what it would not mean. If it was enacted into law, it would not mean that we would stop offering summer courses or winter intersession courses that are funded by the state. We would continue to provide the same level of state-supported courses as we do now, and as the budget increases, we would increase those number of state-supported courses that would allow students to continue to pay the $46 a unit. What this bill does allow us to do is, if there is demand in particular bottleneck courses, that it gives the board the authority to offer courses either in the winter intersession or the summer intersession above and beyond what the board is authorized of state-supported courses if the college shows that there is demand. This mechanism, this authority exists for the California State University system, which has been offering extension courses for many, many years. This is certainly new to the community colleges. The legislature has been struggling with ways to increase access at a time when it has not been able to fund appropriately the access necessary in the state of California. And with their actions, the legislature has entrusted our college as a potential pilot to see if this would work. The bill also requires that each college provide financial assistance to Board of Governor fee waiver eligible students. That indeed would be the case here at Long Beach City College, working through the foundation, working through other sources of financial aid, whether those be Pell, GI benefits, or funds made available through our Long Beach City College Foundation, as well as 1/3 of all the revenue that's generated goes to discounting the fee for Board of Governor fee eligible students. So there are a number of provisions in the bill that would require us to not only reduce the cost to students, but to provide additional financial assistance. I realize that even with all those amendments and changes to the bill, there is still a lot of concern. I know I speak on behalf of the administration here that we understand that this college serves the students of Long Beach. It serves Long Beach. We have always had a tradition of serving Long Beach. That's what the Long Beach College Promise is all about. That is why the foundation has raised enough funds to pay for the first semester of every incoming freshman from a local high school. And we will continue to do so even if given this opportunity to offer more courses. So with that, we will wait and see what happens with the governor and then decide what to do from there. If there is still great demand for courses that are leading to certificates and degree and to transfer, and this bill is signed, then we will bring back those options to the board at that time. With that, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, President Oakley. Student trustee report.
Yes, good afternoon, members of the board, students and citizens. I would like to start by thanking the board, the President Oakley, and the administration for resolving the problems with the shuttle. Also, I would like to announce that the ASB this week is holding special elections for Vice President, Treasurer, and Secretary, and that the students are having the Join a Club Day in this week as well. I also would like to comment on AB 955. This past week's emotions among the students have been raised regarding this bill. As you may know, the bill will increase from $46 to about $250 per unit some courses during summer and winter intersessions. Personally, I have expressed my opposition during several of these board meetings. Also, as you may know, students have been protested against the bill. Moreover, a group of passionate students have collected more than 600 signatures in opposition to AB 955. AB 955, as it's amended, will be a pilot program that will affect six colleges, and that is a voluntary pilot program. Having this in consideration, this and that the bill, in my opinion, will negatively affect LBCC students and the community, since it will increase the fees, creating a two-tier fee system. And with this two-tier fee system, we will be creating a discriminatory gap between the students who can afford for this high cost and those who cannot. I would like for this board to have a discussion on the bill, like whether we would like to adopt it or not, and also having in consideration opinions of the students and faculty member. This bill has been promoted by the college through the online magazine, and it's my understanding that also emails have been sent promoting the bill using our LBCC emails. Since this is something that have raised a lot of attention, when we are using our magazines and the email. I would like also to have a student's opinion as well as faculty, that we may can agree or disagree, and well, I think that's part of our democratic process. So since I feel it is important for our college and for our community to have the hear of the different entities for that place here in Long Beach City College. I totally understand the good intentions of the bill on adding more classes, but more classes have already been added, and I am positive that in the future Proposition 30 will be bringing even more. I feel like a community college should be affordable and equitable for everybody. Thank you.
Does that conclude your student report? All right, thank you. Trustee reports at this time. Anyone? Back and forth. I would only like to also say thank you to everyone at Pacific Coast Campus today for the ribbon cutting. Extremely nice event and beautiful facility. So it's great to see these happening. We also have some other events coming up shortly as far as groundbreaking and moving forward. So that was all really positive and encouraging how the face of this college has changed dramatically. Somebody made a comment that the former Hamilton Middle School, or it used to be called junior high schools, they inaccurately said that Tom Clark attended Hamilton Junior High School back in the day, and he said, no, I went to Franklin Junior High School, which for people who know, it's down the street, but it was a great event, so thank you all for doing that. Also, only because I always love to watch and the different events, the football season is underway, as mentioned by the athletic director, also the women's volleyball, and they have their, not their first home opener, but they do have a home game this Friday at 5 o'clock. So wish them all well, and if you can get out there and see them, they obviously appreciate it. Are there any other Board of Trustees or trustee communications at this time? Hearing none. Future reports. I would only request that to the superintendent president, we've discussed this in the past and the issue has come up, that somehow, some way you bring back to the board in the future regarding, there has been a time about questions about in regard to our vocational area about their advisory committees and the question on when they meet, how they meet, and so what I was, parameters, however you want to bring something back eventually in a report, so the board knows, and it can be in consent calendar, however you feel is the appropriate way, that we can at least have some type of paper trail back to the Board of Trustees on what their agenda, what they had for an agenda, what their minutes and their attendance, and that hopefully will eliminate what we've had in the past where there was a question of whether they were meeting or not. So I just leave it at that as a suggestion. If we can do that, that'd be...
We can certainly, this is a good timing since we are changing the way we deal with our advisory committees, and I'll work with Vice President Brock and Vice President Bynum to come back with a report at some point in time.
Thank you very much. Moving on, I have in my hand speaker cards for non-agenda items. I would say that there are 5 speakers, and we are limited to 5 minutes per subject. All 5 speakers, they are James, Jessica, Catherine, Stephanie, and Edgar. They're all regarding AB 955. It is a 5-minute limit, so that simple math, that's a 1 minute. If you would like to speak, I will notice when the minute is up, or if you would like one speaker to touch on the item. You have heard it already by our student trustee and our superintendent president regarding AB 955. If there's other questions you have, but please, if you all would like to come up to the podium or stand in line, James, Jessica, Catherine, Stephanie, and Edgar, if you want to. If you're all going to speak, you'll notice I will, and I don't mean to do it in a rude way, but I'll be waving to you at 1 minute, and you'll have to stop so you can get on to the next speaker. And take your time. If you want to have 1 or 2 people speak to the subject matter, that's fine too. Whatever your choice, but it's 5 minutes. And the decision is?
You want to speak individually?
For the entire group?
No.
I'm sorry.
Individually?
All
We will
right,
each be
then
speaking.
please don't take it as a rude, but I'm going to wave to you, and I'll probably make the comment as well. at 1 minute. So, and your name for the record, please.
My name is Jessica Bracho.
Go ahead.
Good evening. It is a fact that among the hundreds of LBCC students the Civic Engagement Club reached out to through petitioning, email, and protesting, not a single one voiced an opinion in favor of AB 955. In fact, during only 3 days of petitioning, a handful of students were able to gather 607 signatures from students who are very much against AB 955. We live in a society that trains us to be champions of self-interest, yet students seeking training in higher education at Long Beach City College are taught to be critical thinkers. We have learned that a history of self-interest has led to both innovation and destruction. When I think about my education goals, I imagine how I might make my life better and how I might make the world a better place. Not every student with means is willing to trample the dreams of others to advance their own. I represent a community of students against AB 955. We do not mean to merely stand in opposition to you or to be merely a thorn in your side. Please do not misunderstand. We are here to support each other in finding our better selves so we can all live in a better world because we care. Do not allow us to continue to be overwhelmed by a system that seems to put up endless roadblocks in front of us.
1
Do
minute,
not
Jessica.
allow AB 955 to be another burden. Please do not allow yourself to be another.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And your name for the record.
James Routon.
Thanks, James.
Board Member Clark, I'm glad you touched on it because 1983 was Prop 13, and it was the slogan was free till 1983, and Proposition 13, along with a basic Reagan disenfranchisement of higher education, led us to where we are today. So I want to say that if you pass AB 955, it does not hold for just that year. It is a continuance of success because it will be viewed as a success. So you're making sort of an elitist class of students who can afford certain classes in whatever sessions you put them in. There's also a calendar incentive that is involved as well, as I'm aware of. So AB 955, as Assemblymember Williams introduced, the notion is that it is a solution to the limited class space at our community colleges. Impact classes are preventing students from completing community college within 2 years. We need to help our students acquire the training they need to enter the careers and transfer to university. So this essentially is contract education. And a certain amount of people are against contract education.
1 minute, James.
And it goes along with SB 15 or 1550 and AB 515 that carries from Santa Monica City College. If you know, my brother went there. He was also aware. And very high hikes in fees. So if you're limiting the youth who are poor, students are already poor. Right below students is poor people. It's the classes.
Okay, James.
So you
Finish.
further inhibit that.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Deschamps. Hello, President Oakley and Board of Trustee meetings. I think everything's been said, so I'm going to keep it short. President Oakley, we are not oblivious to the challenges that we must face in regards to financing community colleges in California. We are aware that millions of dollars have been taken out of the last recent years, resulting in layoffs and reduction of classes. We agree that something needs to be done, but burdening low-income students is not reasonable. It's not a reasonable solution, and it's unacceptable. President Oakley, I challenge you to show us what students are for AB 955. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Hello, my name is Edgar Portillo. Actually, I'm unprepared. I just don't think most of us students will be able to afford the 250. And I just object that's just that part of AB 955.
Thank you, Edgar. Madam Secretary, there are no other cards you've received regarding non-agenda items. Thank you. If there is no other business before the board at this time, I will then, without objection, adjourn the meeting to our September 24, 2013 meeting at the LAC campus. Without objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.